One of the biggest mental barriers or mental problems or mental mistakes that I've ever made was really falling into the trap of the by now I should have mind state. See, I used to look at my life and I used to say to myself, oh, by now I should have made more money. By now I should have sold more books. By now I should have grown a bigger business. By now I should have had more success. By now I should have, you insert whatever it is that you wanted to have achieved so far now that you haven't. And this mind state, this way of thinking, it's toxic and it's flawed and it's based on a completely false life philosophy. And just the other day, it popped up for me again, and I was sitting in my backyard, my 4 daughters were playing, and I was honestly, I was completely off with the fairies. I was daydreaming, and I was thinking, looking at them, and even then thinking of the seeds, the flowers that haven't even broken through the soil yet. And I was thinking, do I think any less of those flowers? Do I think any less of the flowers that haven't grown and matured and bloomed and beautiful right now? Of course not. They're just exactly where they're supposed to be right now. They are on their journey. And then it clicked for me. Well, I'm on my journey. Why am I putting so much suffering and pain and hardship upon myself when I'm just on my journey? Maybe I've just not yet matured and bloomed yet. And I'm talking to myself like I'm a flower right now. So let's just stick with this for a moment. So when I took this concept and applied it to myself, and then I apply it to others, and then I simply think, well, I just love you for who you are. I love myself for where I am and accepting for where we are along our journey as well. But then I also thought to this next step, and I think this is where it becomes really practical and useful for you and I. And that is, there is this little paradox that we're playing with constantly as well. And on one hand, there is this striving. There is this us wanting to go out, to go and conquer, to go and achieve and get things done. And I'm totally with you because I've lived so much in that mind state of wanting to strive and achieve and conquer. And then on the other hand as well, there is the just being okay with what's going on right now. And there is the accepting for what is right now. And then there is this, well, how do I play between the two? Because if I've got to be perfectly honest, the striving, the going and wanting to achieve, evolve and grow, I very much love that as well. But if you go too far down the striving route, well, that becomes toxic. That becomes quite painful because then you're trying to force things as well. You're trying to get things done that might not be the things the way that they need to be done. You're trying to control time. You're trying to go beyond what divine timing really is actually going to let the way things unfold, the way they're going to unfold. But then on the other hand as well, you have, if you go too far down the side of just accepting, there is what I see is complacency. And if you have too much complacency, then you lack that growth, you lack that evolution, you lack that getting the things done. And I do believe that we're here to be able to create and grow and evolve and to be able to serve others. So how does that actually work? And this is where I really came down into it and wanted to make this really practical and useful for myself. And a couple of things really started to click, and this is what I really want to share with you, because as I started to work through this concept, there was the idea of firstly understanding of what chapter in life am I in? What chapter in life are you in right now? And as a very practical, pragmatic example, in the next video, I'm actually going to be delving into how I make over $1 million a year working only 12 hours a week, but having the exact right business model to suit myself in this chapter of life. So thinking, what's the chapter of life that you're in right now? What is it that you truly want to succeed and achieve, be, do, and have? But then also, what are the responsibilities as well that you have in this chapter right now? If I'm talking to someone that's in their early 20s and you see so much of this online, the advice that's coming from these 20-year-old dudes, and it's not wrong. They're doing the right things. They're saying what is true to them, and that's fantastic. But the advice is go out, hustle, work. And yeah, absolutely. I believe in your 20s that you should be working. You should be very focused as well on building skill sets, on building values, rather than just trying to get to this multi-million-dollar outcome. But what happens is that is what's right for that person in that stage, in that chapter of life. If I'm talking to someone that's in their mid-30s, in their 40s and beyond, well, then this is going to absolutely change. There's going to be a difference with this. And you'll see that as I explain, especially in the business model episode coming up. So I do believe for this to be actually really useful for you, there is a bit of a dance here. And I also think that we're in a little bit too much of a world today where things are a little bit too prescriptive. 2 step-by-step checklist. Like if you follow these 9 steps right now, you're going to 100% get this result. A lot of the parts of life, I think a lot of the parts of the sticky parts, the harder parts, the more complex parts of life just do not work like that. There is a dance. There is the element of you having to take responsibility, just like how I have to take responsibility for myself to be able to find my path. I cannot be able to hand off the responsibility for someone to be able to come down from the hill, etched in stone, telling me exactly the way I need to be able to live my life. I don't believe that's true. But there are principles, there are heuristics, there are things that help point to how it is that we can figure this stuff out for ourselves. And this is how I've been able to figure it out for myself as well, which is why I want to pass this along. So the few principles, the heuristics, the ways for us to figure this out, I think the first one is being able to have more awareness, being able to have some better self-awareness for yourself of knowing where it is that you are in life. And one of the concepts when I think about the awareness as well is actually thinking about the lens in which you're looking at the world, because you're telling yourself a story of what reality is for you and how you're perceiving reality. And it's really the concept of like taking the lens off and being able to see that there is a lens in which you are perceiving life through. And then having the option, well, do you need to clean the lens? Do you need to change the lens? Can you keep the lens completely off as you go through the process of figuring this stuff out? Also, when it comes to the awareness side of things, there are the practices that are going to be able to help aid you be able to increase your self-awareness. And that's going to be such as mindfulness practices. But then once we go beyond awareness, there is the other things such as feedback. So feedback from others is extremely important. For myself, I have such a great friend, James, that we've done a recent interview with. But for him and I, we got together very frequently, nearly every single week for 2 to 3 hours at a time, Friday morning, sitting down. I would drink a coffee and sparkling water. He'd have a coffee and he'd have some eggs and avocado. And for 2 to 3 hours, we'll just be there in dialogue with each other. And it was such a beautiful way to be able to have someone point out my shit and being able to be really honest to me about what's going on, where I might be thinking incorrectly. Maybe I'm making the wrong assumptions about things. But being able to have that feedback from the outside world for me to be able to then best navigate forwards. Because there's feedback from others, but then there's also the feedback from ourselves as well. And for me, this is just my practice, is journaling really helps. I find there's like a bit of a BS meter between my mind and my pen as I'm writing. And I know if I'm bullshitting myself. I know if I'm lying to myself as I go through the process. And being able to literally just get into dialogue with myself, being able to first ask the right questions, get to asking the right questions, and then being able to then answer those gives myself this feedback loop of being able to better find the truth. Then the next part of this is going to be able to look at, well, what's your environment right now? What is it that you're actually consuming? So yes, environment, physical environment. And I'm actually shooting this video for you right now, and we are in Austin, Texas. I'm here to shoot some videos. What I love about travel so much is that because I get outside of my usual typical day-to-day environment, I am literally going to be having different thoughts. I am literally going to have a greater multi-perspectival view as into my life, and these different thoughts give me these different insights, and those insights then help me better navigate moving forward. Then when it really comes to the environment as well, I think of the people that I'm going to be surrounding myself with. And really importantly, I think of like Rene Girard's mimetic theory, and thinking of like, well, from what I'm consuming, from the people that are around me, but also what about all of the media, social media, all of that stuff that's coming into my brain from the books, the podcast, all of the videos that I might be watching, the documentaries, so on and so forth, all of that information that's coming in, that's going to be affecting me as well. And then I need to think about, well, what am I needing to maybe kind of like take a step back, put a bit of a distance between myself and the outside of environment that's going on? Because maybe, just maybe, through mimesis, I'm actually wanting things that I don't actually want. And therefore, if I'm wanting things I don't actually want, I can be clearly going off on a different and wrong path that's true to myself. And it can be very painful, which I know really well, this has happened to me many times, to then be able to swing back around to then move forward for what's right. And this next one I find really interesting because I don't think that we can actually really get away from this. And this is, where is confirmation bias leading me astray? Confirmation bias is one of those things where if I've made a decision, if I'm thinking that one thing is going to be the right thing, and really what's happening, I'm then looking for other resources, other information, other feedback, other things that are then going to be telling me that, yes, I am right. I'm wanting confirmation on what I've already chosen. And so I'm looking for the critiques. I'm looking for the criticisms. I'm looking for the other side of the argument. For me, I want to be able to steel man the opposite side of an argument. I think it's very important then in an argument, or for an argument that is for me being able to decide what I need to do. There could be a go left, there could be a go right. I want to be able to steelman both parts of those arguments for me to have a greater understanding of both of those different choices, for then to be able to me figure it out what to do next. And then it comes down to something again that's I think is really practical, but often really easy for us to miss. And that is just to think about life, think about steps, think about decisions in experiments, and thinking about them as in small little steps and not something that's going to be absolutely forever. Because maybe if you're making decisions that are going to be absolutely forevers, maybe that's the wrong decision to be making. Maybe you're putting yourself in a situation that is incorrect. So for me, I want to be able to decide properly on what it is that I want to be able to do. I then want to be able to move efficiently, effectively into what it is that I need to be able to do, and doing it with the right intensity, with the right duration. I then want to be able to get the right feedback, the right data, the right, somehow do I know if this is actually leading me in the right way that I want to as well. But then I really want to be able to then reassess and then do it all over again. And because if I am able to decide properly, move forwards properly, then be able to figure out and then be able to have a proper reassessment, and then I just repeat that cycle, it's not going to be this perfect straight line from where I am right now to exactly where I should be able to go. But rather than having these massive zigzags everywhere, it tightens the line up, and I am able to get there faster, and I am able to get there with less suffering, and I am able to get there, dare I say, even with more fun. So wherever you are in life right now, coming back to the by now I should have mind state, I want you to know that I respect and admire you for you being on your journey and for you being able to get after it the way that you are right now. Because if you need some extra confidence, hey, borrow some off me. I've got plenty of that stuff. But I want it to be understanding for you to be able to go, you know what? Don't be hard on yourself if you're upset, if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're just in frustration when you look at your life right now and you know that there are parts, you know deep down, if you're really to get quiet, you close your eyes, you listen to yourself, there is that little bit of negative emotion that could be sitting there that is like, hey, you're not doing what you're doing, you're not being who you want to be, you're not achieving what it is that you want to be able to achieve. That's perfectly fine, but understanding that it is what it is, but now you have the responsibility to be able to move forward, which is why I wanted to go from the, hey, this by now should have mindset that I've had so often as well. That's bullshit. Let's move beyond that and let's better understand, just like how we understand where the flower is at it as well. Because if I'm a flower, sure as hell you're a flower as well, and we're on our journey. But then understanding how do we then figure it out to be able to move forward in a really effective way, which is why I've wanted to share this with you today. So I really appreciate your time and attention for joining me. Thank you for being a part of this journey with me, being able to share this with you. I'd love to hear from you, being able to know where you are, what it is that you want, and how I can best help you as well. If there are any topics or questions that you want me to dive into in future episodes, please send them through. Send me an Instagram DM, comment in the YouTube videos, send a review on the podcast, put a note in a carrier pigeon and send it to me. I don't care, do some way, but I'd love to hear from you. So as always, thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.